Hi, I'm Dr. Patricia Mills. I'm a holistic MD, women's health expert, functional medicine practitioner, and passionate advocate for your health. I am really excited to be here today to talk about a very important brain health topic, which is how to boost your brain self-cleaning function so you can do things like banish the brain fog. This is really important. And the thing is that titles don't really do the topic justice. They catch your attention, but what I want you to understand is that over the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to be covering, does your brain actually self-clean? And the answer to that is yes. How does this important function work? And actually, this is something that was just not that long ago discovered by scientists, which is really, really cool. We're also going to cover how can we boost the functions like this important self-cleaning function, and what happens when we don't do that over time. What kind of diseases and experiences can we expect to have in our lives when that important function is decreased? Okay. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. If you're joining me live, this is the Thrive Thursday event that I host in my private Facebook group for women, Wild Wisdom for Women with Dr. Patricia Mills. And so thank you for joining me live if you're part of this group. And the benefit is that you get to know the topic in advance and ask your questions as we go along. And if you're catching this on the replay on one of my social media platforms, feel free to join my Facebook group. It's free. You just have to say yes to the group rules, and we welcome you with open arms, because life is better in every way when your body feels balanced and your mind is calm and focused, right? All right, so let's dive right into this topic. So, I kind of like the idea of the brain having a self-cleaning function, kind of like your oven having the self-cleaning function, right? And what's really fascinating is that we, like the scientific community, wasn't aware that the brain had a self-cleaning function until around the early 2000s. And it was only in 2013 that the part of the brain that is responsible for self-cleaning was really identified and named. And that is what we call now the glymphatic system. Glymphatic, glymphatic. And what it is, it's the lymphatic system. So the lymphatic system is found throughout our body, right? It drains, garbage from like the arms and the legs and the organs, all of the garbage that your body makes. The body dumps it into the lymphatic system, and the lymphatic system circulates it so that we can get rid of it. And actually, the scientists in general didn't know that the brain had its own lymphatic system until recently, because it was such a delicate tissue, but most importantly, it is mostly active at night when we are asleep. So during the daytime, it's less active. So the lymphatic system draining the brain was kind of collapsed. So when we were doing like anatomy resections of the body, you wouldn't actually see the lymphatic system very easily with the naked eye because it was collapsed. And it was only with a bit of advancements in like staining of different tissues that they saw this like network of tissues that were draining the brain. And when they knew that that network of tissues were draining the brain, they were like, okay, well, let's start looking at how it works, when it works, right? How does this whole thing function? And what they found using MRIs, like real-time live MRIs studying, they say that this is a system that's present in all mammals and all vertebrates. So they were able to study animals using functional MRIs, where they would watch the animals during the daytime and sleeping, and they saw that what happens is that our brain at night, the brain is made out of like mostly fat and water, okay? And what's really interesting is that at night, the brain shrinks like a sponge that is being squeezed. And the dirty water from the brain that has accumulated dirt over the day from all of its brain functions gets squeezed out and drained by the lymphatic system. So literally, if you think of like a sponge that's full of dirty water and you squeeze it, and the dirty water goes through this like network of drainage systems, and so it drains out through this lymphatic system so your body can get rid of it. Then what happens is that throughout the night, the body then, the brain then re-expands because it's filled up with clean water. So the body gives the brain clean water and re-expands it, and now it's ready for the next day. This is a very simplified explanation because you have to understand that that dirty water is full of stuff. It's full of like broken down protein, okay? So our brain has protein that does work inside of the brain. And just like any tool, it eventually breaks down and it has to be kind of thrown out and recycled, right? Or disposed of. Interestingly, certain conditions like Alzheimer's are, they are known to have problems with protein breakdown accumulating in the brain. Okay, so when you do an autopsy with people with Alzheimer's, the hallmark is they have a lot of like sticky protein that is like stuck together and stayed in the brain, when ideally your brain would be like cleaning and getting those out. So there's now starting to emerge this kind of idea that, is there something that's going on with the self-cleaning function of the brain that is getting in the way of the brain being able to get rid of these like broken down proteins, right? And protein is just one of the things that our body gets rid of at night. It gets rid of excess minerals. It gets rid of what we call breakdown products like metabolic wastes, right? That the cells use and then it throws out into the water that bathes the cell, and that's the water that gets squeezed out. Now imagine if that self-cleaning ability, that sponge, kind of like that sponge-like cleaning effect at night, were to not happen as powerfully. So let's say that a really healthy brain, cleans itself 100%, right, every night. Let's say if you decrease that to 75% or 50% or 25%, you get a slow but steady accumulation of garbage. Think about your home. When you stop taking out the garbage effectively, what happens? Well, at first it's not very noticeable, right? A little bit of garbage here, a little bit of dirt there, a little bit of things accumulating here. It's when it happens over time, steadily over time, you start to get more and more and more garbage. And then all of a sudden it's like there's garbage blocking the door and you can't get into your bathroom. Or there's garbage blocking your tub, right? Or there's garbage blocking your windows and you can't see out the windows. So the functioning of your home starts to decline and you start to notice it more significantly. So the initial stages of the brain not being able to clean itself well could be experienced as like a brain fog, right? Like a loss of mental clarity, like a decreased sharpness, okay? And like a fatigue, like a veil, right? Is like down over your eyes and you just don't see everything clearly. You don't like observe everything clearly, okay? Not in a vision way, but in like a brain function kind of way, okay? And then let's say that were to continue over time, you could start to experience problems with memory loss, right? And short-term memory loss is the big problem that a lot of people have. Problems with focusing, problems with concentrating, problems with remembering things that people just recently told you, or repeating yourself in, conversations, or like, telling the same story multiple times to the same person, right? These are signs that your brain function isn't optimal. And the very first thing to look at is your brain able to clean itself out appropriately? So how do we know that that's happening? Well, one important thing to know is the timing of when this happens, okay? So the brain self-cleaning function is most optimal at nighttime for most vertebrates, like humans and mammals, between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., okay? Not much variation between those two, between like in that time, maybe a little bit genetically, but not a lot, okay? So maybe like 11 to 3, but really not much later than that, because there are stages of sleep that happen. And it's not like if you go to bed at like 12, that stage is shifted. And instead of going, having your self-cleaning from 10 to 2, You now have it from 1 to 5. That doesn't happen. It's at a certain time in the 24-hour clock. So in order for you to have the deep brain cleaning happening, you need to be asleep and you need to be in deep sleep. It doesn't happen when you're in light sleep or you're in REM sleep, the dreaming part of sleep, okay? So in order for you to maximize your brain cleaning abilities, you need to be in bed and in deep sleep around the time of 10 o'clock, right? Give or take a few, like maybe give or take 1 hour, okay? Let's say you're someone that habitually goes to bed around like 11 o'clock and you're naturally genetically disposed to clean your brain between 10 and 2. Well, that means that you're losing out on about 25% of brain cleaning time, right? And if you were to continue doing that for your whole life, you may or may not notice that. That might be an issue or it may not. But you may notice over time that you're just not as sharp as you used to be. You wake up and you're not quite as energetic as you were, right? Your energy levels are slightly drained through the day. Now, let's say that you're going to bed around midnight, and that's pretty habitual for you. Now you're missing out on 50% of your brain cleaning time. That is probably going to be resulting in fairly observable problems, like things that you really notice. Again, there's going to be a tipping point, right? However, it's very interesting because there are, children these days. I was just recently speaking to a child in the park and a friend of one of my kids, and he was saying how he goes to bed at 10 and he's 5. And, the kids, like they need more of that. And theirs happens like a little bit earlier, right? And I know that there are some teenagers that are going to bed at like 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and even adults that are going to bed around that time. And what I'm seeing is that, and what the research supports is that we're having a lot more mental disorders going on, mental health issues going on. And if you're not able to clean your brain appropriately, you're going to notice problems not only in the sharpness of your intellect, but also in your mood, because it's hard for your body, your brain, to make its feel-good chemicals if there's a lot of junk lying around, right? Like a lot of things are clogging up its function, which includes making your feel-good hormones in the brain, the neurotransmitters in the brain, the molecules that promote good, balanced emotions at the level of the brain, okay? So, one thing is timing. Timing matters. And there was an interesting study done on people who identified themselves as being night owls. And what they did is they took these people who said, well, like I just get very productive around 10 o'clock at night and I work until 12 or 1. I go to bed and I sleep and I wake up a little bit later and that's my routine. Well, they did a study where they took a group of people like that, night owls. They put them in a dark room, like a kind of like a cave-like setting with no clock and no blue light sources that would indicate that it's daytime, right? So they just put them in a room. They didn't have any sort of blue light sources. So there was no TV screens, no computers, no phones. The only electronic that they had was a landline phone that they would use to call the investigators whenever they felt like they were ready to go to bed. And what they found was that after a few days, these people's sleep rhythms normalized and they started naturally wanting to go to bed around 10 o'clock, like between 9:30 and 10. A lot of interesting things to be learned from the study. First of all, if you think you're a night owl and you have your more productive times later in the nighttime, chances are that you've actually created that rather than are genetically inclined towards that, okay? And how do we create that situation? Well, the hormone that gets us to fall asleep at the right time and to fall asleep deeply is melatonin hormone. And the melatonin hormone is turned off, the production of it is turned off in the brain by exposure of the eyes to blue light. Where do we get blue light from? We get blue light from the modern LED light bulbs, okay? We get blue light from our computer screen. We get blue light from our phones. We get blue light from our Kindles and other reading devices. We get blue light from our computer TVs, right? Our TVs. And the timing again of blue light matters. Blue light is good for the eyes. And what do I mean by that? Why is blue light good for the eyes? Well, the eyes are connected to the brain through the optic nerve, okay? And actually the back of the eye is brain tissue. The retina is brain tissue that has extended out through the optic nerve into the eye. So it's like the eye is a part of our brain, a direct connection, okay? And the back of the eye senses blue light. And what should happen is that at our highest amount of blue light should happen around midday when the sun is at its highest peak. And then we are outside, the light filters into our eyes, not direct glaring light, but you got your hat on, you're underneath a tree, filters in. That brain tissue at the back of the eye, your retina, senses the blue light and sends a signal to the brain saying, it's daytime. Let's do all of the daytime things, okay? Which is not to sleep. So it blocks melatonin production, which is our deep sleep hormone. Then as the day goes on, the amount of blue light from the sky goes down. We get more into the pinky lights, right? The pink kind of sunset lights, amber, red, orange, pink, right? At the sunset. And then at nightfall, it's black, okay? And so there's really decreasing blue light production as the day goes on. Well, what that would naturally do is, as the blue light goes down, the melatonin hormone production goes up because melatonin is made in the brain. Okay, it's also made in other places, but it's significantly made in the brain and the kind that controls our sleep. And so if you have continuous blue light exposure from continuing to look at your phone, look at your computer screen, look at your TV, looking at your Kindle and other reading devices, having your overhead lights on, that will block your melatonin production. What that means is you might even go to bed at the right time. You might even be sleeping, but you will not be having the deep sleep that is necessary to do the brain cleaning, the brain self-clean function. So for some people, it might be such a poor melatonin production that you have a hard time falling asleep and then you have a hard time staying asleep. So sometimes when you wake up in the middle of the night, there's many reasons for why that can happen, but one reason could be that you don't have enough melatonin hormone production, right? And that it becomes a very obvious problem for some people, but some people can still fall asleep and stay asleep, or fall asleep and they might wake up. However, when they are asleep, it's not the right kind, it's not the right quality of sleep. So when it comes to self-cleaning the brain, it's actually not how much sleep you have, but the quality of sleep that you have at the right time, that 10 to 2 o'clock window, give or take an hour on either end, okay? So what you need to do to protect the quality of your sleep is you need to protect your eyes from blue light exposure. Around the time that the sun is setting, you start to decrease the exposure and then you eliminate the exposure after the sun sets, okay? How do you do that? Well, you have to use smart technology, okay? So what does that mean? That means that when the sun starts to set, start dimming your lights and turn off any overhead lights, but keep the lower level like desk lights or like floor lamps on. And ideally you would have those with the amber lights, which you can buy at your home hardware store or online through Amazon, for example, amber LED lights. They're not expensive. They don't have to be fancy. They just have to be amber LED. And you put them strategically in a few of your low-level lighting at home. And that's what you have on after the sun sets. On your phone, you can have a red color filter. I'm just looking around to see if I have my phone here. And I don't, but I have a red color filter that I put on my screen at night when I go to, like, when the sun sets. I have a software that I downloaded for free. You can download for free on any computer called f.lux, L-U-X. And when you put in your time zone, it automatically regulates the color of your screen as it goes through the day. So bluer during the daytime and more amber red tones in the nighttime. You still have to decrease the brightness of your computer. Okay, so bringing down that bright tone of the computer. because your eyes are stimulated by blue light and the brightness of the light it is exposed to. Salt lamps are also a very nice way to go, putting salt lamps through the rooms, okay? Because they're more of like a glowing amber kind of color, okay? And if you're gonna watch TV after sunset and you can't put like a blue blocking screen on it, for example, then you wanna buy blue blocking glasses, but they have to be the kind that have like a very distinctive reddish amber tint, like a red orangey tint to the glasses. Otherwise, they are the very mild blue blocking glasses that some people use during the day to decrease their blue light exposure from their computer screen if they're using their computer screen from the time they wake up to the time they go, from the time they stop before dinner. That is not blue blocking enough when we're talking about after sunset, okay? And then at night, for night lights, use a red light, a red LED light or a red incandescent light, okay? And have that as your night light. So if you wake up to go to the bathroom, or if your kids wake up to go in the bathroom, if they have a night light, by the way, kids' night lights should be red. There are some night lights, actually most of the night lights have blue or green colors. Throw it out. It is completely disrupting the hormonal balance in yours and your family's bodies, and maybe contributing to a lot of the sleep issues that a lot of people are running into these days, including young children, including breastfeeding babies. So if you're getting up in the middle of the night or anytime after sunset to breastfeed, it should be by the light of a red light, not anything with any kind of blue color on it. And wouldn't it be interesting to see with that technique, if your family starts to fall asleep easier, faster, more deeply, and stay asleep, better through the night, okay? And so you might experience those changes immediately, and what those changes will afford you over the long term is the advantages of the impact that this has on your body and your brain by virtue of being better able to clean itself deeply through the night, right? And it's just such a beautiful thing to be able to naturally boost that self-cleaning ability, because there is no drug that will do that for you. There is no drug. Even yes, you could take a melatonin hormone. That, however, and that is for some people like a good band-aid solution and a bridge to be able to start falling asleep. Research shows that you really don't need anything more than 0.3 milligrams or 1 milligram. It's hard to find 0.3, so 1 milligram is enough. 5 to 10 milligrams is probably way too much. The research shows you get equivalent effects at the lower doses. If you've been taking higher doses, this might be a time to reset your body with a lower dose. And what you want to do is, over time, instead of relying on a supplement, what you want to do is you want to fix the root cause, which for most people is blue light exposure and timing. And the timing tends to work itself out, like being able to fall asleep at the right time around 10 o'clock, when you reduce or eliminate that blue light exposure after sunset. Okay? So this has been very, very important information, very actionable strategies. Your brain self-cleaning function is crucial for brain health. Scientists who are looking at the lymphatic system are starting to make the connections between problems with, how the lymphatic system is being used, like how often it's being used, the right time and the right way, and diseases such as Alzheimer's, dementia, brain disorders like mental health disorders, autism, all of these things, right? And we're just starting to understand those connections. It's very early days. However, what I love about better understanding how the body works and how we might be blocking these natural bodily functions through unintentional, accidental exposures to a modern way of living, and then actually using modern technology like the F.Lux software, the amber LED lights, the real blue blocking glasses, right? That's what's really going to start um, you know, having the impact on your health that you desire through these small shifts, small strategic lifestyle shifts that you make in your day. And they can be so powerful. And for some people, that's enough. Okay. And at the very least, everyone has to take these actions because, for example, when I work with clients who have brain fog as being their primary issue, this is the foundational thing, right? And then we institute these foundational actions, and then we may need to go in with some targeted supplements, helping the body detoxify. So those lymphatic systems draining the brain are open and not clogged up, which can happen, right? We need to sometimes help that lymphatic system drain. Sometimes there's certain things like heavy metals that have accumulated in the brain, and we need to help flush it out, right? Which research has shown there's some very, very simple, elegant, natural solutions for that. Very powerful. However, none of these things will work if you don't have this foundational part in place. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions that pop up, please put them in the comments, even if you're watching the replay, because I do follow my comments closely on social media. And so if you have any questions about this, please feel free to ask. I'll give this just 1 minute longer because I know that there's a delay between the people watching and me presenting and you being able to put in your questions. And again, if you are part of my Facebook group and you haven't yet had a chance to download my free ebook, How to Balance Your Hormones Naturally, please go into the featured section. That's where you find your download, okay? And if you are outside of my Facebook and catching this on another social media platform, look in the captions, click on the link, and you get a free ebook, my gift to you. So many actionable strategies, very similar to this kind of approach that I've just taken here for the last half hour. I see some lovely reactions coming in here in the comments. So thank you, ladies, for your attention, for your interest, for your curiosity, for your thirst for knowledge and wisdom. And I hope you have a really wonderful rest of your day, evening, or night, depending on when you catch this. Bye.